You're pathetic, Dad. Stop pretending you can afford anything. Those were my daughter's exact words before she slammed the door in my face. The sound still echoes in my head every single night. What she didn't know, what she still doesn't know, is that every dollar she's ever spent, every designer outfit she flaunts on social media, every expensive meal she posts about came from me. From my calloused, grease-stained hands that she's so ashamed of. You'll want to stay till the end because what happened next made the entire university gasp. What happened next changed everything. My name is Daniel Moore. I'm 54 years old. A widower. A mechanic by trade. And father to a daughter who's forgotten where she came from. A daughter who looks at me like I'm some kind of infection she can't shake off. But let me tell you something about shame. Real shame isn't being a mechanic. Real shame isn't having dirt under your fingernails from honest work. Real shame is watching your own flesh and blood become everything your wife prayed she'd never become. Hailey, that's my daughter, she's what they call a social influencer now. 22 years old with 100,000 followers watching her every move. She posts videos about her aesthetic lifestyle and her scholarship girl journey, and how she escaped poverty. Escaped poverty. As if love was poverty. As if the home her mother and I built for her was some kind of prison. She stands in front of cameras talking about rising above your circumstances, while completely erasing the two people who sacrificed everything to give her those circumstances to rise from. She's made a brand out of forgetting us. Out of forgetting her mother. Lena. My wife. Hailey's mother. She died 3 years ago from an illness that took everything we had to fight. Everything except our love for each other and our dreams for our daughter. Lena was a teacher before she got sick. She used to tell me, Daniel, education isn't just about getting ahead. It's about lifting others up while you climb. God, how she would weep if she could see what Hailey's become. But here's what nobody knows. Here's what my daughter in all her social media wisdom never bothered to discover. After Lena died, I took every penny we'd saved for retirement, every dollar from her life insurance, every cent I could scrape together from fixing cars 12 hours a day, and I created something. The Lena Moore Scholarship Fund. $300,000 endowed at the very university where my daughter now struts around pretending she earned everything herself. $300,000 that I've never told a soul about. While Hailey posts pictures of her ramen dinners talking about being broke but blessed, I'm eating actual canned soup so that other girls who remind me of who Hailey used to be, can get an education. My daughter thought I was broke. I wasn't broke. I was just quiet about what really mattered. But apparently, quiet love looks like poverty to someone who only understands loud money. The irony cuts so deep I can barely breathe sometimes. She brags about her scholarship, the one she calls merit-based and earned through hard work. She has no idea that the money keeping her in school comes from the fund I created. She has no idea that her independence is built on her father's silent sacrifice. But you want to know what really shattered me? What finally broke this old man's heart completely? 3 weeks ago, there was a campus dinner. Some kind of networking event for scholarship recipients. I drove over in my beat-up truck because I wanted to see her. Just see her. Maybe catch a glimpse of the daughter I used to know, the one who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read her bedtime stories. I stayed in the parking lot mostly, just watching through the windows. Watching her laugh with friends, watching her pose for pictures. She looked so beautiful, so confident. For a moment, I felt proud. For a moment, I forgot how much she hated me. Then she saw me. The look on her face, God, the look on her face. Like I was something dirty that had crawled out of a sewer. She came outside, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd be happy to see me. Maybe she'd introduce me to her friends. Maybe she'd remember that I'm her father. Instead, she hissed at me like I was some kind of stalker. "What are you doing here? Are you following me now?" I told her I just wanted to see how she was doing. I told her I missed her. I told her I was proud of her. And that's when she said it. That's when she delivered the line that's been playing in my head like a broken record: "This is my dad, he fixes cars, not lives." Her friends laughed. They actually laughed. At me. At their friend's father who was standing there with his heart in his hands. But it gets worse. Oh, it gets so much worse. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was scrolling through my phone. Yes, this old mechanic knows how to use social media, and I saw it. A video she'd posted. Title: "When your poor dad crashes your scholarship dinner." She filmed me. Without my knowledge, without my consent, she filmed me standing there looking confused and hurt, and she posted it for the world to see. The comments were brutal. People calling me pathetic, telling her to get a restraining order, making jokes about creepy poor dads who can't let go. I watched my own daughter mock me for an audience of strangers. I watched her turn my love into content. I watched her humiliate the man who's given her everything. That's when something in me shifted. That's when the pain turned into something else. Something harder. Something that my wife would have recognized, because Lena knew that sometimes love has to be tough. Sometimes love has to teach through consequences. If HAILEY wanted the world to watch, then the world would also watch her learn. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen, looking at pictures of Lena, asking her what she would do. And I heard her voice, clear as day: "Character is the currency that never loses value, Daniel. And some people need to lose everything else before they understand that." 2 days later, I drove to campus. Not to her dorm, not to embarrass her again. To the financial aid office. To have a conversation that was long overdue. I found HAILEY at her usual spot, this trendy little cafe where she films her "Study with Me" videos. She was set up with her ring light and her aesthetic coffee cup, talking to her phone about grinding through midterms, while spending more on one latte than I spend on groceries in a day. When she saw me approaching, she actually rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes at her father like I was some annoying fan interrupting her important work. "Please don't embarrass me again," she said without even looking up from her phone. I sat down across from her, quiet as I could be. "HAILEY," I said, "I need to ask you something." She sighed dramatically, still not making eye contact. "What, Dad?" "That scholarship you're always talking about. The one you say you earned. The one you tell people came from the university's merit program. Have you ever actually looked at the paperwork? Have you ever checked whose name is on the donor file?" She finally looked at me, and I could see the irritation flashing in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Just curious," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe you should check. Maybe you should find out where that money actually comes from." She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Like the idea that I might know something she didn't was impossible. "Dad, you're not making any sense. You don't know anything about scholarships or universities or what, HAILEY? Or money? Or how things really work." Something in my tone must have gotten through to her because for the first time in months, she was actually listening. But then she shook her head, like she was shaking off a bad dream. "You're being weird," she said, gathering up her filming equipment. "I have class." She walked away from me. Again. But this time, I wasn't left feeling defeated. This time, I was left feeling determined. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized but never called. "Dean Morrison. This is Daniel Moore. We need to talk." It's time my daughter learns what integrity costs. The meeting with Dean Morrison was enlightening. We sat in his oak-paneled office, surrounded by degrees and awards and pictures of successful graduates. Pictures that included several young women whose education I'd secretly funded. "Mr. Moore," the dean said, "I have to tell you, HAILEY's conduct has reached our attention through other channels as well. Her social media behavior, particularly the content involving family members, has raised some concerns." I wasn't surprised. Apparently, I wasn't the first parent she'd humiliated online. There had been other incidents, other videos where she'd mocked people for not meeting her aesthetic standards. "The scholarship charter," Dean Morrison continued, "includes a moral clause. Your wife was very specific about that when you established the fund. Character assessment, community service requirements, respectful conduct, all part of the agreement. My Lena. Even in death, she was still teaching. Character is the currency that never loses value," I told the dean, repeating my wife's words. "That's what she used to say." "It's a beautiful philosophy," he agreed. "And one that we take seriously here. We've scheduled a review hearing for next week. The scholarship committee will evaluate whether HAILEY's recent behavior aligns with the fund's values." "Will she know who the donor is?" I asked. "Not unless you choose to reveal it. The hearing is about conduct, not donor relations. Though." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "There is the annual donor recognition ceremony next month. You've declined to attend for 3 years running." "I declined because I never wanted recognition. I wanted to honor Lena quietly, help other families quietly, love my daughter quietly. But quiet love had been mistaken for absence. Quiet sacrifice had been mistaken for inability. This year," I said, "I think I'll attend." The scholarship review hearing was held in a conference room that smelled like coffee and old books. HAILEY walked in like she owned the place, irritated that her time was being wasted on what she clearly considered bureaucratic nonsense. I wasn't there. I'd asked to observe anonymously through the administrative office. I watched through a one-way window as my daughter faced a panel of professors and administrators. "Miss Moore," the committee chair began, "we're here to discuss some concerns about your recent social media activity." "My social media?" HAILEY's voice was incredulous. "What does that have to do with my scholarship?" "The Lena Moore Scholarship Fund includes provisions about character and community representation," another professor explained. "Specifically, the way recipients interact with and represent their families and communities." I watched my daughter's face cycle through confusion, then dismissal, then anger. "Are you seriously going to police my online content?" she demanded. "Everyone posts things. Everyone has family drama. This is ridiculous." The committee chair pulled up a laptop and turned it toward her. "Miss Moore, can you explain this video?" It was the one about me. The one titled, "When Your Poor Dad Crashes Your Scholarship Dinner." Watching it again, from this sterile conference room, made me feel sick all over again. "It's just content," HAILEY said defensively. "Everyone makes content about their lives. It's how social media works. Content that mocks and humiliates your father?" Professor Williams asked. "Content that refers to his working-class profession as something shameful?" "Look," HAILEY said, and I could hear her getting agitated, "my dad doesn't understand boundaries. He showed up uninvited to my event. I was just processing that publicly. By calling him pathetic?" "I didn't call him pathetic in the video." "No," the committee chair said quietly, "but you did call him that to his face, according to multiple witnesses. And then you filmed him without consent and posted it for public ridicule." I watched my daughter realize that her actions had consequences beyond her follower count. I watched her understand that the adult world doesn't operate on likes and shares. "Miss Moore, Professor Williams continued, this scholarship was established by someone who believed deeply in the values of respect, gratitude, and community service. Someone who understood that education is a privilege, not a right, and that privilege comes with responsibility. Okay, HAILEY said, and I could hear the first notes of worry creeping into her voice. I get that. But this is just one video. One moment. You can't judge my entire character based on. It's not just one video, the committee chair interrupted. There's a pattern here. Content mocking people for their appearance, their economic status, their life choices. Content that suggests you view education as something that elevates you above others rather than something that should inspire you to lift others up. I thought about Lena, about how she would have reacted to seeing our daughter like this. Lena, who taught underprivileged kids for 15 years. Lena, who never made anyone feel small. What are you saying? HAILEY asked. We're saying that your donor, the person whose generosity makes your education possible, has the right to know whether their investment is creating the kind of person they hope to support. Who is my donor? HAILEY demanded. I want to talk to them directly. I want to explain that this is all being blown out of proportion. The committee members exchanged glances. That will be their decision, the chair said. But Miss Moore, I want you to understand something. Whoever established this scholarship did so because they believed in the transformative power of education. They believed that young women like you could learn not just facts and figures, but character and integrity. I have character. HAILEY protested. Do you? Professor Williams asked gently. When's the last time you thanked your father for his sacrifices? When's the last time you acknowledged that his work, honest, hard-working manual labor, is what gave you the foundation to pursue higher education? I watched my daughter's face crumple slightly. For just a moment, I saw the little girl who used to help me in the garage, who used to be proud to tell people her daddy could fix anything. He embarrasses me, she whispered. Why? Because he's just a mechanic. Because he doesn't understand my world. Because when people see him, they judge me. And what do you think your donor would say about that attitude? HAILEY was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know. But whoever they are, they'll understand. They'll understand that I'm ambitious, that I'm trying to build something better. The irony was crushing me. She was talking about me. To me. About me. Without knowing it was me. Miss Moore, the committee chair said, your funding will be suspended pending a character review. You'll have one academic year to demonstrate that you understand the values this scholarship was meant to promote. If you can show genuine growth, genuine understanding of what respect and gratitude mean, the funding will be restored. I watched my daughter's face go white. You can't do this. I need this scholarship. I can't afford school without it. Then perhaps, Professor Williams said kindly, it's time to have a real conversation with your father about sacrifice and gratitude. The donor recognition ceremony was held in the university's grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, an atmosphere of celebration and achievement. I stood in the back, wearing the one good suit I owned, the one I'd bought for Lena's funeral, and watched the crowd mingle. HAILEY was there, working as part of the catering staff. Part of her scholarship suspension included community service hours, and apparently serving at university events was how she was earning them. I watched her carry trays of champagne, her face tight with humiliation and anger. She had no idea why she was really there. No idea that in a few minutes, her entire world would shift. Dean Morrison took the stage as dinner concluded. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate the generous donors who make dreams possible. Individuals who understand that education is not just an investment in one student, but an investment in the future of our entire community. The applause was polite, predictable. I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. One fund, in particular, embodies the spirit of quiet generosity that makes this institution special. The Lena Moore Foundation, established 3 years ago, has provided full scholarships to 15 young women. The donor has chosen to remain anonymous, never seeking recognition, never asking for thanks. I saw HAILEY freeze near the dessert table, a tray of glasses trembling in her hands. Tonight, Dean Morrison continued, for the first time, our anonymous donor has agreed to be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Daniel Moore. The spotlight found me in the back of the room. I heard the gasp, not just from HAILEY, but from the entire crowd. I walked slowly to the stage, feeling every eye in the room on me, but most importantly feeling my daughter's eyes burning into my back. When I reached the podium, I looked out at the sea of faces. Professors, students, administrators, donors. And there, in the side aisle, my daughter stood frozen with her mouth open and tears streaming down her face. 3 years ago, I began, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest, I lost my wife. Lena Moore was a teacher, a dreamer, and a woman who believed that education should build character, not vanity. She believed that knowledge without kindness is worthless. That success without service is empty. I could see HAILEY from the corner of my eye. She'd set down her tray and was gripping the back of a chair. When Lena died, she left me with a choice. I could let grief consume me, or I could honor her memory by living her values. She believed that every young woman deserves a chance to learn, to grow, to become her best self. Not just her most successful self, but her most compassionate self. The room was completely silent. Some people think scholarship means getting ahead. Lena believed scholarship means lifting others up while you climb. Some people think education is about rising above your circumstances. Lena believed education is about remembering where you came from and helping others find their way. I finally looked directly at HAILEY. Her face was streaked with mascara, her hands shaking. This fund has supported 15 young women over 3 years. Women who understand that privilege comes with responsibility. Women who honor their families instead of hiding from them. Women who see education as a gift, not a right. I paused, letting the weight of those words settle. Unfortunately, not every recipient has embodied these values. Sometimes, people forget that true wealth isn't money, it's moral character. Sometimes, people need to lose everything else before they remember what really matters. The audience was hanging on every word now. My wife used to tell me, character is the currency that never loses value. Tonight, I want to honor her memory by ensuring that this fund continues to support young women who understand that truth. Young women who know that respect isn't what you demand, it's what you earn when no one's watching. I looked at HAILEY one more time. She was crying openly now, no longer caring who saw. And sometimes, I concluded, love must teach through consequences. The applause was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I walked off the stage and out of the ballroom, leaving my daughter to process what had just happened. Dean Morrison's voice followed me, effective immediately, scholarship funding decisions will reflect the values Mrs. Moore held dear. Recipients will be evaluated not just on academic merit, but on character, community service, and respect for family and community. I didn't stay to see HAILEY's reaction. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what she was feeling because I'd felt it myself 3 years ago when Lena died, the crushing weight of understanding that your actions have consequences, that your choices matter, that love isn't always soft. The next few months were brutal to watch. HAILEY's influencer career collapsed almost overnight. Screenshots of her mocking me went viral, but not in the way she'd intended. People were disgusted. Brand sponsorships disappeared. Followers started unfollowing in droves. Comment sections filled with people calling her entitled, ungrateful, cruel. She lost her apartment because she couldn't afford rent without her influencer income. She had to move back into the dorms, sharing a room with a freshman because it was all she could afford. She took shifts in the cafeteria, delivered food on campus, worked in the library. I watched from a distance as my daughter experienced real humility for the first time in years. I watched her get a taste of what actual struggle looks like, what it means to work for every dollar instead of having them handed to you. It should have felt like justice. Instead, it felt like heartbreak. But then, slowly, something started to change. I heard from Dean Morrison that she'd started volunteering at the scholarship office. Not because it was required, but because she'd asked to. She was helping process applications, reading essays from young women who reminded me of who she used to be. I heard that she'd reached out to some of the students her social media had mocked, apologizing personally and privately. No cameras, no content, no audience. I heard that she'd been seen in the campus food bank, not taking food but donating her small earnings from her work-study jobs. She was learning. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely, she was learning what her mother had tried to teach her. 1 year. 1 full year of real consequences, real struggle, real growth. And then, last month, she submitted her reapplication for the scholarship. I read her essay in Dean Morrison's office. I read it twice, then a third time, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She wrote about shame, not the shame of having a working-class father, but the shame of being the kind of person who would mock the man who'd sacrificed everything for her. She wrote about discovering that her scholarship had come from me, about the crushing realization that while she was calling me pathetic online, I was quietly funding her education. She wrote about her mother, about finally understanding what Lena had meant when she talked about character and service. She wrote about the students she'd met while volunteering, young women who worked 3 jobs and sent money home to their families while maintaining perfect GPAs. She wrote about me. My father is a mechanic, her essay read. He has grease under his fingernails and calluses on his hands. He drives a truck that's older than some of my classmates. He shops at thrift stores and clips coupons and eats canned soup for dinner. He's also the most generous man I've ever known. While I was building a social media presence based on lies about my independence, he was quietly funding scholarships for women like me. While I was mocking him for being poor, he was giving away everything he had to honor my mother's memory. I spent 2 years being ashamed of where I came from. Now I'm ashamed of who I became. But I'm grateful for a father who loved me enough to let me fall, and grateful for the chance to earn back what I threw away. Character is the currency that never loses value. My mother believed that. My father lives it. And I'm finally learning what it means. Last week, the scholarship committee voted unanimously to restore her funding. But this time, things were different. When I saw her on campus, she wasn't hiding from me. This is not who you're meant to be, and I believe in you enough to help you find your way back. I didn't take my daughter's future away. I gave her a mirror so she could see who she really was. And more importantly, I showed her who she could become. Respect isn't what you demand. It's what you earn when no one's watching. Success isn't about rising above where you came from, it's about lifting others up while you climb. And sometimes, the people who love you most are the ones willing to let you fall, so you can learn how to stand on your own. Character is the currency that never loses value. Lena knew that. I learned it. And now, finally, HAILEY understands it too. That's not punishment. That's love. The hardest, truest, most necessary kind of love there is.